What's up with you? It's me again. They done flew me back in all the way from Baltimore, baby. We here for session number 4. Start that watch party. Come on. We here, baby. I will take this opportunity to welcome you to Brothers Obtaining and Navigating Dynamic Solidarity, also known as Bonds. The Transmen and Transmasculine Week of Affirmation and Resiliency. Woo! 2022. Where you at? Come on. Hey, listen, nosies. If you ain't know, that's what I call my folks. It's right here. Join the nosies. Follow me everywhere on social media, baby. I'm a disabled Army veteran. I got a whole wife. Ow! I got a whole wife. Let me say that. Ow! Listen, I'm also here as an ally. I got a 15-year-old son who's going through his transition, and I'm here to learn all week long, just like you. Hit that share button, start your watch parties, tell your friends to come on, because where they at, though? Where they at, though? Because I don't understand. I'm not understanding how we only have this little bit of people here when we got all these free refreshments. Because why? Our sponsors are the bomb. The sponsors are the bomb. Let me show y'all these sponsors real quick. Oh, we got the sponsors of the year. Those sponsors been so delicious and good to us that they are putting on activities that we cannot even have done without them. So shout out right now to our sponsors. We appreciate you putting on this week's events for us. Speaking of this week's events, oh my. Let me come off here so y'all can see me. I need y'all to come on in a little closer. If you didn't know, this weekend, it is going down. Thanks to our sponsors. It is going down this Saturday in DC, baby. Let me show y'all something. Because y'all must not have been online. But I'm going to tell y'all a secret. Hit that share button. Tell your friends, come on. Where they at, though? We here for day 4, panel 4. We talking about mental health today. Get your friends here. Listen, this Saturday is going down, baby. The Sips and Cigars is going down this Saturday in Washington, D.C. at the Costa's Rum Bar, baby. From 7 to 11 p.m., you want to be in the building. And guess what? If you ain't got it, you can still come. We're going to put a comment over here. We're going to put a code in the comments. I got that all mixed up. We're going to put the code in the comments because our good sponsor said, listen, if you ain't got it, don't worry about it because we got it and we want you in the building. So the free code is coming over in the comments. Stay on the lookout for it. Also, this Sunday is going down. The Black Trans Joy Brunch is going down at the Chateau Remix in Washington, D.C., folks. I'm going to need y'all in the building. I'm going to need y'all in the building because it's going to be nice and sexy. They got a brunch. They got a limited open bar. And guess what? The sponsors bought that out too. So if you want to come and you are in the area in DC this weekend, look out in the comments so we could drop that free chat for you. Hey, we got our baby in the building. Welcome back for panel number 4. Elijah, what's up with you? Oh, Army Strong. Oh, appreciate you. Shout out to the veterans. Did y'all go get y'all free stuff on Veterans Day? Because I got my free stuff. That's all I know. But look, before we get anything else going, I got to bring on my good brother. Hold on. Let me find you some music because, you know, I always got to bring my brother in with something good. Let me see. Oh, I got one for you. Folks, I want to take this opportunity right now. Before I bring my brother on, we want to hear from you, though. We want to hear from you in 20 words or less. Share your thoughts in the comments. What are your thoughts on mental health needs right now? What are your thoughts on mental health disparities right now in the transman and transmasculine community? What are your thoughts? We want to hear from you in the comments. Listen, I'm about to go in the back because the sponsors done bought out everything and they got the free snacks in the back. So I'm going in the back, but I got to bring up my good brother. Oh man, my good brother. I love him so much. Y'all may know him as the co-executive director, baby, of Bonds. He goes by the name of no other than Mr. Hey, Tyree, where you at? Where you at? Hey, where you at, brother? Hey, let me go on in the back because I got all the good stuff in the back today. I see you in a minute. Go ahead, brother.
Hello. Welcome. Thank you. My name is Tyree Williams, and thank you for joining us for Mental Health in the Transmen and Transmasculine Community Panel. I am Tyree Williams, pronouns are he, him, king, and I serve as the co-executive director for Brothers Obtaining and Navigating Dynamic Solidarity, also known as BONDS. This panel will examine the mental health needs and disparities of trans men and transmasculine communities. We are very excited about about this year, our second year of Trans Men and Transmasculine Week of Affirmation, TWAR 2022. I want to do a special thank you to our sponsors, Destination Tomorrow, If A Foundation for Radical Possibility, Transgender Justice Funding Project, Gilead Sciences, Us Helping Us, National Trans Visibility March, Unspoken Treasure Society, Flux AHF, and the Human Rights Campaign. Thanks to those who have responded to inside our chat for opening questions. We're going to give folks a few minutes to join us. While we're waiting, please let us know some of your thoughts in the chats. What are you looking forward to learning from this panel? Looking forward to seeing your responses. We'll get started shortly. Please share the stream in your networks.
Y'all heard him. He said share this with your team. I'm going to need y'all to hit that share button. We're trying to get these seats packed. We got the front row open for you. Hey, ushers, bring them in. Come on. Hey, we here to talk about mental health. I'm going to tell y'all a secret. I'm in that DSM hard. I'm on about 27 of them pages. Come on. We here. We here for panel number 4 of this wonderful conference. We welcome y'all in. Come on. Have a seat. Have a seat. Put your comments in the comment section. We value you. We appreciate you joining us today. Hit that share button, please. We are here for panel number 4, mental health in trans men in the transmasculine community. Once again, I'm your MC, T. Pearson, founder of the T. Pearson Experience, also known as TPX, baby. Team Nosy, stand up. Today's panel is going to examine the mental health needs and disparities of trans men and transmasculine community. Get your folks here now. Start your watch parties. Share this live stream. And come on and grab a seat. Hey, Tyree. I think they ready. Let's get into that conversation, bro.
Let's go. All right. So we are honored to have our fabulous moderator who stepped in. I appreciate her for her resilience as always. So our moderator for today, as far as mental health, will be no other than Miss Kayla Gord.
All right. Thank you, Tyree. Thank you for having me here today to moderate this conversation. We're going to start with a list of panelists that we've assembled, and they're a great group of people. And we would like for them to introduce themselves, and we can just popcorn it. I think we can let each person speak for themselves about what they're going to bring to the conversation and what their takeaway should be.
Oh, I'm up.
You up first.
What's up, everybody? How you doing? My name is Devin Lowe. My pronouns are he and they. I'm based in New York City, the Bronx. I'm the executive director, founder of the Black Trans Travel Fund. Prior to founding the Black Trans Travel Fund, I was running transmasculine support groups for community for over 3.5 years. Still run support groups occasionally with Black Trans Media. So yeah, I'm here and excited to be with y'all.
Thank you for coming. Thank you for joining the conversation. Up next.
Good afternoon, everybody. How you doing? I am Reverend Julian Clark. I am the founder of Focus to Rise Life Coaching, which I am the master life coach of adversity. I am also the founder of the auspicious Mental Assertion Program Incorporated, or AMAP. I am also the reigning Mr. AQK of the Alpha Omega Kappa Fraternity Incorporated.
All right, up next we'll have Zami.
Hello, everyone. So my name is Zami Tinashe Hemingway. My pronouns are Zami, he, and him. And I'm the founder and CEO of Spiritus Wellness. I have my master's in social work and a master's in arts and social transformation. And I work as a capacity building and technical assistance provider for gender affirming care, inclusion, and health equity, as well as support community-based organizations, tech companies, and executive leaders on how to intentionally integrate wellness into the work and movement spaces to help reduce burnout, turnover, and increase longevity, commitment, and successful team dynamics. Very grateful to be here for this conversation.
Awesome. That's a great list of panelists. A lot of experts that are going to be sharing their thoughts and their opinions and their views on the topic of mental health with trans men and transmasculine folks. We have our last panelist joining us.
Hi, Kayla.
Hello.
Yes, my name is Samuel Alston. I'm the owner of True to Self, which is mental health services that I will be giving for our trans community. I'm also a disabled Navy veteran. I'm in between Atlanta, Georgia, and the Hampton Roads area of Virginia. Um, Today, I hope that the ultimate goal is to get people to understand how important mental health is dealing with trans men and trans masculine folks. So I'm happy to be here on this panel, and I'm looking forward to hearing everyone's opinions.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. So, as I said, people get your notepads, get your tablets out, so you can take notes on this powerful conversation that's about to drop. So let's get into our conversation. For these questions, we want you to speak to your expertise or your experience around the topic. How do you define mental health wellness for yourself? And anybody can jump in and answer this question. Devin, I see you're down there moving. You got something to add?
Yeah, sure. I'll kick it off. Let's see. I guess in terms of mental health wellness, to me specifically, it's just having a peace of mind. You know, a feeling of ease in my mind and in my body. My stress levels are low. My anxiety feels manageable. I'm feeling confident in my ability to handle my problems. And I'm in a position to get some quality rest. Like, those are like strong indicators of mental health wellness for me.
Thank you. Thank you. You look very rested and healthy today.
Thank you.
Does anybody else want to add their experience or their expertise on this?
Yeah, I'll
I'll
go
go
next.
I think.
How you doing? Okay, so for me, mental health, everything is things that encompass your mental psyche. So everything that is spiritual, your emotional, physical, everything that can possibly conjure up your makeup of your full self. If it encompasses your full self, if it hinders your full self, that's all the things that make up mental awareness to me.
Thank you.
I'll go ahead and chime in next.
Please.
So for me, mental health wellness really means I'm feeling grounded and I'm moving with ease in my life, that I am able to focus and have ability to obtain clarity. I'm in a place where I'm able to thrive. And when I am experiencing difficulty or any type of adverse in my life, I'm able to pause and ask for the support I need. And even if I don't know what that support looks like, I'm able to pause and say, I need help. I'm not okay. And be able to receive that support from other folks. So having an awareness of myself, my spirit, and my needs.
So a common thing that I heard everyone say was it's derived from feelings. Your mental health it's related to feelings. And we're talking about a specific group of people. We're talking about trans men and trans masculine folks. So how do we frame that around the health disparities that trans men and trans masculine communities face more specifically?
I'll go ahead and I'll start this one off.
Come on.
So when I think about a lot of the just general health disparities that trans men and trans masculine folks experience, we experience things like high psychological distress. We experience higher counts of suicide ideation. We have different physical health struggles as well. And a lot of that has to do with health equity and access to health. A lot of that has to do with minority stress. So the impact that we as a group of people who get marginalized, who have identities who often get marginalized, just existing in the world can be stressful for us. And living in the state of chronic illness or chronic stress around our mental health just continues to begin to impact us. So when I think about health disparities or mental health when it comes to trans masculine folks, I really think about what are the health disparities for the transgender community, what are the health disparities for the Black community, and what are health disparities for men and masculine folks. And then you combine all that together at the intersections, and that's where we begin to be able to see what the mental health disparities are for us as trans men and trans masculine people, which has to do with racism, has to do with economic barriers, has to do with employment barriers, has to do with fear of navigating a world that sanctions Black death, that sanctions trans death, etc. And also being told that in order for us to fully realize our masculinity or our manhood, that also means that we have to suffer in silence, right? And so just continuing this message. And so when I begin to think about health and mental health for the trans masculine community and the disparities, you have to look at the intersections of all three communities in which we encompass.
So speaking to identities and how that plays a role in health equity, take it a little further when you're talking about the sanctions of murder of Black people, especially Black men and Black trans women and Black non-binary people. Can you speak to that? And this is specifically for you.
Okay. Yeah. So when I'm thinking about, just living in this world, right? When people look at me, the first thing they see isn't that I'm a trans person. First thing they often see is I'm Black. And then closely that people often perceive me to be a cisgender male. You all can't see this, but I'm also highly tatted. And so, from neck down, I'm highly tatted, and I'm also fairly muscular. And I also have a pit bull. So when I'm walking down the street, I often look like the stereotypical masculine people. I get harassed by the police often. And I have this fear of whenever I get pulled over, whenever someone talks to, particularly an officer, am I going to survive this encounter? So I have to deal with that. Also have to deal with within the community, because the way in which I've transitioned, people also are like, you have all this privilege, right? And having to navigate in the community, what in the trans community is seen as more privileged, because now I'm seen as a man, I'm able to live my life this way, I have access to other doors, but I also lost a community too, right? So I transitioned from having a community, a support group, to now looking this way and being told I have privilege. And I'm like, but I am living in a world that tells me I have to suffer in silence, that tells me that I could be shot or killed at any moment. And I'm also erased from many statistics. If you look at statistics, this is today's TDOR, right? This week is TDOR, Trans Day of Remembrance. And if you look at statistics around the murders, it's overpopulation of trans women of color, particularly Black trans women and Latina trans women. And we rarely see any numbers or statistics for trans men or trans masculine folks. And it's not that we're not being murdered. It's just that when we are murdered, we're erased, right? We're misgendered. And so that's a whole nother part of mental health and this psychological distress that we experience, where we're trying to, one, find placement and find community and a support. We're trying to navigate this newfound privilege that we're told that we have. And we're also trying to navigate living an identity that has been told from the history of this country it's okay to murder and abuse, right? And so, at those intersections is where we have to find where's our peace, right? But we also have to be able to find where do we find support, and where do we get the support to discuss that and have that peace.
So the question I'm posing to everybody else is how does that relate to your experiences or experiences of people that you've encountered or served or shared space with when it relates to the disparities of health? Because when we think about the disparities of health, we don't always think about the sanctions of our murders. And we also don't think about the erasure of our murders being connected to anti-trans violence. Can we get some opinions and thoughts and experiences on that? I go to you, Devin. You look like you're ready.
Well, I was just contemplating, but I'll go. I mean, in terms of how the things that you said relate to me, it all feels very relatable. I mean, I was gonna touch on this as well, just what you already said in terms of transmasculine folks having these high rates of anxiety and depression, suicidal ideation, and a lot of people don't realize just how many of our folks that we are losing to suicide because these hurdles are feeling impossible to overcome. Like the current data that we have says that transmasculine folks have the highest suicide rates in all of the community, which is not something that's commonly known. It's commonly known that trans feminine people are supposedly the folks that are highest murder rates, but we have the highest suicide rates. And I can speak, it really touches me personally because I'm someone that has struggled with anxiety, has struggled with suicidal ideation. I've been medicated. I've been hospitalized twice on suicide watch, early on in my transition. So it's something that's very personal to me. And I remember being in school, trying to use the bathroom, and I was almost arrested for trying to take a piss in the men's restroom, and like the amount of difficulties that my school provided me, it was just so hard and so hard on my mental health, like just constantly being singled out, being told I was forced to then use the staff restrooms for the rest of the year. I couldn't use the men or the women. So it's like the ways in which those things really impact me. And I had this very real fear of police because I ain't never had a positive experience with police. I've been tackled, I've been arrested on multiple occasions. So it's like the intersections of navigating transphobia, navigating anti-Black racism, navigating all these things. I grew up in the South, so it's really, really hard, and it's a much more common than I think that people are realized, and there's not enough space for us to really express ourselves and the very real fears that we're navigating on a daily basis. That's all I'll say is that it's a very personal topic for me.
It seems like a very personal topic, and I want to kind of stick with you for a minute and talk about why do you think the data doesn't reflect the same disparities that Black trans women have faced, and now the data reflects that. Why do you think that the data doesn't reflect that, and how do we get to the point where the data is actually showing what's happening within this community?
I mean, as it was already named, there's a lot of erasure and silencing that takes place within transmasculine communities. And at the same time, it's like we need more data, right? White people love data, but fuck them. Like we need our own data.
Yes.
And one of the things that's taking place right now is actually the U.S. Trans Survey, which is going on until November 21st. So anybody who hasn't taken that survey yet, I do encourage you to please, please, please take that survey. It is lengthy. It's going to take half an hour to an hour, but we need that information. It's so critical because these numbers, they affect, us being able to get funding, us being able to advocate for ourselves and the things that we need in terms of mental health, which I know we're going to get into that more later. But definitely a lot of us are not filling out those surveys. You know, I can't tell you how many folks that I know, and I know hundreds and hundreds of trans men did not take the last survey that we had, which I believe it came out in 2015 or 2016. So
15.
there's a lot of work that we can do
Mhm.
in community to make sure that, you know, we are showing up and that we are being seen. Because we share these stories amongst ourselves, you know, we know, but the general public doesn't have that information. The general public, you know, isn't in conversation with trans men on a daily basis. So yeah, it's just my
Could we
personal.
get that link for our viewers so that they'll be able to engage with the survey? We can get that link out. And they're like, that survey is very lengthy. Like you said, it can take anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour and 15 minutes. But it's very important. It's very crucial to us, like you said, being able to support ourselves, sustain ourselves, and also be able to say, this is what's actually happening to this group of people. I've used a lot of the language from the 2015 survey in proposals and even in my speaking engagements, just to show that there's data that supports these things that are coming out of my mouth. And a lot of times we don't, like you said, we don't have it, we don't own the data. This is an opportunity for us to really, really get engaged in it and be. I think there should be some very impractical ways that they're putting the survey out as well. I think that it's not just us not taking the survey, it's also the way that the survey is being presented to our community, because we have to remember there's a history of mistrust of data collectors when it comes to our community and what they're going to do with our information and things like that. So I think there needs to be a more sensitized way that they're reaching out to Black and Latinx communities to make sure that our data is getting counted, and not just the people who are more elitist, who are taking the survey, people who have the amount of time, because a lot of trans people are plagued with poverty, and they're plagued with constant fear of violence and lack of access to healthcare, and a survey is not really important to them. So we have to really think about more intentional ways of collecting the data. And I don't want to stick to too long, because this is a very, very great conversation. So we're going to get on to our next question. What do you feel are the most pressing mental health issues for trans and transmasculine patients? And I know we've probably talked about this a little bit, but we haven't heard from everybody. So if we can, let's go to Reverend first, and then we'll come to you, San Juan.
Okay, so and for me, I believe that some of the most pressing issues are things such as suicide prevention, proper health care to go along with the accessibility, as well as health professionals being educated with it and knowledgeable. Because I know from my own experience and from experience of others that have reached out to me or that have been put in contact with me, going to these facilities, you don't have anybody that's there that's knowledgeable, that has either dealt with it with an individual or have been trained to deal with us as a community. So they don't know what they're doing. Then for us to have to sit there and teach them or train them according to what we have going on within ourselves, that's not the time nor place when we need to be seen. And there has to be a way to where when these facilities are being trained and there's more diversity, equity, inclusion with the training, that they are set back to understand where we're coming from. There is definitely a good sense of generational curses that definitely impede on what we do, where we go. So just our culture in itself doesn't want to go to the doctor. You can barely get a cisgendered man to go to the doctor, say, to get his prostate exam. So when you look at anyone of a trans experience having to go for their health care, when you walk in an office, and because we look a certain way, they automatically assume that we need a certain type of health care. It's wrong. So we need to be able to say, this is what I need. This is my body. These are the instances and the cases that I need handled. And then outside of that, there's always definitely more of the physical side. There's the sexual element of what needs to be taken care of. And again, when we're not having those conversations and we're not feeling as though we're safe to even begin these conversations, there's a huge disparity in where we can go and what we need to facilitate to reach these goals.
Right. I completely agree with that. And thinking about how organizations can train and be culturally competent when training about the trans body. And that's inclusive of everyone, not just trans masculine folks, trans feminine people, the trans body. And I remember about maybe 8 years ago, I did a training with Planned Parenthood. And I was like, do you have a budget? And they were like, yeah, we got a budget. And they showed me the budget. And I was like, okay, maybe I can do a panel for you all. Like I can do my presentation that I would normally do. And then I can also create a panel of actual live participants who identify different on different spectrums of being transgender. And we had a trans masculine person on the panel. And when I tell you the response, this is 8 years ago in Memphis, Tennessee, the South. So the response was more so gravitational toward the trans masculine person because they wanted to know, like, how do we treat you? How do we treat your body? And how do we treat people who identify similar to you? We're gonna take a pause and go to some of our comments because we have a lot of people who want to engage in this conversation. So we have Vargas here saying people think they can apply cis-normative gender politics, aka men oppress women, to transgender men. And I think earlier someone alluded to that about how there's a loss of privilege. Devin, I think you mentioned that. Zami, I think you mentioned there's a loss of privilege when you're associated with a different identity. Next, we have another comment from Nick Walker. To me, the most pressing issues for trans men is not having mental health counselors once you are finally on testosterone. It's like there's so many hurdles that we have to jump through to get to vitamin T. And once you're on it, you're left on it on your own. It's like being abandoned. So speak to that because that's a nuance to me. Like I didn't think about that because I know that for me, it's also a similar situation where it's like, you sign this informed consent piece of paper and you're on your merry little way. And you have to really do the research yourself, or you resort to places like Bonds where you can network with different people who are also experiencing the same things that you're experiencing. And I don't think that that's fair. I know that there are nutritionists who are coming about that are trying to focus on nutritional needs for trans people who are actually going through hormone replacement therapy. But could we talk a little bit more about that? I know a lot of people have some input and expertise on this.
Yes, I definitely would love to touch on this. And this is speaking as a veteran who gets care through the VA. And I'm so grateful that this was something that they started, just a few years ago, because beforehand, as far as my personal transition, I never would have thought I'd been able to be here until they came around. But I know that, they sign us up, they tell you, okay, make sure you go see this counselor, before getting to this point, and that, you need to speak to this counselor, forever afterwards, right? So, for myself, the first year, yes, I had that counselor available to me, but it was like afterwards, it just fell off. So even within the veteran system, and as I've noticed, a lot of people coming to me because one thing I do is help direct people to where they can go and find these different counselors that they can talk to. It is definitely important once you have started T or hormone therapy in general to continue on, because there's still those societal effects that we face every day. There's still those times we need to go talk. We need to go talk about what's going on in our home and how transitioning is affecting us individually as well as our family members. We have to go and discuss how things is affecting us at work. Whether you're stealth at work or you're out at work, there's still that encompassing factor of what's going on that may touch and affect you, if you feel safe or not. And when you can't get to this care and you don't have these persons to talk to, then it definitely can lower and lessen your level of mental health. It definitely can be a trigger, because especially if not only do you not have these persons available to you, but if you get them and then they're constantly changing, and now you have to add PTSD on top of that, because every time you talk to a new person, you have to open up those wounds again, and you have to go back to quote unquote your dead name or your dead person, as I like to call it, my twin, if you will, and my twin having transitioned beyond that. Now I am constantly, or a person is constantly rehashing, reliving, re-triggering. So how do you get away from that? And those things do other things, such as trigger suicide, ideations, or it may trigger other sorts of mental health issues that all come together and correlate, which is a steady downpour.
Thank you for that. We're gonna come to you, Yami. Zami, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I was on mute, so it was a small delay. Um, so I really appreciate that comment as well, because I feel that people will do informed consent, but I don't feel that that providers truly understand what informed consent means and how
Mm-hmm.
to engage in holistic informed consent. And so, when people are going to have gender affirming care, yes, if part of informed consent is we come in, we say, this is what's going to help me thrive, this is going to help me be my full self. And as providers, it's up to you all to support us in that. And the other piece of that is support us in that, and doing so in the most successful, easeful, and holistic way. Meaning, if we don't have a support system and we have a therapist and then we go on testosterone and we're learning how to adapt to our new body, we're learning how to adapt to the way that our hormones are, the shifts in our nervous system, etc., then we also need someone to support us through that. We need a support system around that. It's not just writing a script and say go on your way. It's about really creating this system and this care team, so that as we go through this journey of self-realization and we start to unlearn some of the narratives we've told ourselves, we start to develop our own form of masculinity and manhood, we start to really lean into our true selves, then we have the support system to really help us build this foundation and help us elevate in this new identity, as opposed to just saying, okay, figure it out yourself, right? And so I really feel like that's a big part of that. The other thing, I just kind of want to go back to, like, the question around what do we feel like the most pressing issue is for trans men and trans masculine folks. And for me, that's belonging. When trans men or trans masculine folks transition, many of us, well, I'll speak from my experience, majority of my life prior to transitioning, I was in the lesbian and bisexual women community and queer women community. And then when I transitioned, that was no longer a space I could be in. And so now I'm in this process of going through testosterone, learning my new body, that my brain is changing on how I am, how I interact in the world and navigate the world. And then the community that I was in is saying I can no longer be there. So my support system's gone. And so, when we go through this process of transition, then we're in this place of, but who do I turn to? What community am I a part of? And that has a psychological effect on you, because you're being told all these different ways that this is the way you're supposed to be, even if that's not in alignment with your spirit and your soul. And then you don't have a community to go to. Right. And so I really feel like this sense of belonging and that theme of abandonment of a community that you're a part of, abandonment from your therapist or your medical provider who got you to get to testosterone, and then trying to figure out, well, where do I fit in? And having to deal with,
Yeah.
again, all these other levels of minority stress.
Right.
If I
So
may, I'm sorry. If I may also, I think that goes along with that, with the sense of belonging. It's definitely a great need when you talk about mental health, and when you look at when we transition and things like that, and we're told that as a masculine or as a man, this is how you're supposed to act, this is how you're supposed to be. But also on the other side, if you don't have a positive male role model in your life already, you don't know what
Mhm.
your alignment is or how you're supposed to act, the idiosyncrasies. As myself, before transitioning, my twin lived their life as a stud, which was the closest thing that they could live outside of what the true authentic self was. So it was a sense of now transitioning. This is what I think living as a male in the manhood that I believe myself to be to live by, and then the things that was seen as now gaining these privileges, quote unquote, and these conversations all changed even after transitioning. And it's like, oh, this is what that is. This is what this should be. But be coming around, I was fortunate to where I had brothers and I had other people that I can go to ask all the questions that I need to ask of how do I do this, or when this type of scenario is, what do I do that? So this is something that I've seen that is desperately needed to be put out for individuals, where I've seen like cisgendered mentors that say, hey, this is a masculine, form of what you can encompass, what you can embrace, that teaches etiquette, it teaches, everything on how you carry yourself. Now, obviously, yes, it won't align with everyone, or a whole general idea, but it's a start, and it's something that will definitely get a person to start feeling comfortable within themselves. And I've seen several different mentorship programs that allow this. And I think when you, or if there's a way to encompass that for people across, it will definitely alleviate a lot of the situations that some of us feel. Because again, if that person or those persons aren't there and you don't know who to go to, you don't know where you can turn, that's another disparity that is, presented to us.
Absolutely, I agree. So the conversation in here is really piping hot, but we also got a great conversation that's going on in our chats, and I want to go to a couple of those comments. And we're going to start with Clay. It looks like, did the message go away? Toxic masculinity. Oh, no. We need more people to advocate on behalf. On our behalf, we allow people to disrespect us in the medical field, and the first step to change is accountability. And I wanted to kind of like talk about that because, Zami, you mentioned about healthcare and how people don't know what informed consent really consists of. They don't know how to present it to people. They don't know how to ask the right questions or even probe for people to be able to clearly understand what's going on before, during, and after. And I want to ask, do you think that that's because of lack of knowledge, and this is a lack of knowledge on behalf of medical professionals, or is this a lack of care and concern on the behalf of people who have a bias against transgender people? And I want to take it to you, Zami, and then we're going to come to you, San Juan, because we definitely want to get your opinions on the conversation.
Yeah, I think it's a mix of both, to be honest with you. I feel that some of it is a mix of a lack of information, and I feel that the lack of information is a choice at this point. There's lots of avenues for people to become educated on how to better serve and support the trans and gender expansive community, and how to support trans masculine folks, or really any person in the gender expansive community at this point. There's lots of folks doing that, technical assistance and capacity building. And so I feel that some folks are willfully ignorant around it and they don't want to put in the investment. With that said, I feel that, when it comes to mental and behavioral health, people want to go the easy route and say, well, I don't want to offend anyone and I'm fearful. And so they just want to stick to what they know, but that's not good enough anymore. And that's really not best practice. And I'm in the mental health field, so I'm a social worker, right? And so, we're taught that in order for us to support folks, we need to continue our education. We need to continue to strive to be our best. And when we see there's a population that's pushed furthest to the margins, we need to be able to find ways to support that community. So I feel that some of it is, yes, lack of information, but I feel that they are choosing to be ignorant in that way. And then I feel that it really is people needing to stretch beyond their comfort zone, right? So people will say, well, we're very busy. We have all these clients. We can't do X, Y, and Z. That's why it's so important to have multidisciplinary teams, So if you are someone who says that you provide gender affirming care, then that means you need to have a nurse practitioner or an MD on your staff or your team. That means you need to have a social worker or a mental health provider on your team. That means you need to have a case manager on your team to help people if someone is experiencing homelessness or any types of insecurities, so that you have, again, this multidisciplinary team that can provide holistic care and treat the whole person and not just one piece of the identity.
Thank you for that. Sam One, you want to add to the conversation? I know we've had some tech issues on your end, but I definitely want to make sure that you're able to add some substance to this conversation.
All right, can you hear me?
Yes, we can definitely hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right. So, in my opinion, I believe it's a combination of both, and I can only speak on experience. I can't speak for anyone else. And like it's some doctors that are ignorant to trying to learn about trans health or trans mental health issues. And I say that because some doctors will take the time to get to learn. They'll ask questions, or if they don't know the answer to the questions, they'll go and say, well, let me research, or let me talk to colleagues that have that experience with it, and I'll get back with you. On the other hand, you have some healthcare professionals that just don't care. And you can sense that in their tone, in their actions, the way that they deal with you and handle you. You can tell who's innocently just don't know, and some that's just discriminating against you. You know, I've had that experience at the VA hospital at one point where I needed an X-ray done, and all of my paperwork says male, everything. But it was one part in the system that the military, they just failed to delete. And so they were calling me, and he was telling me, he was like, do you need a pregnancy test? I was like, that don't apply to me. And so he was like, well, it do apply to you because I'm looking at your record. I said, well, sir, that doesn't apply to me because I'm a transgender male. Oh, well, that don't mean nothing. I still have to do my job. So you have those that are ignorant, and then you have those that, you know, will try to be compassionate to the situation. So you definitely can tell the difference. You definitely can tell the difference.
I can wholeheartedly agree with you that and I'm not going to say that everybody can tell the difference, because some people don't. They can't. Some people don't have the upbringing in the healthcare system to be able to identify when someone's being offset versus someone being like really in tune to what's going on, and also open to the possibilities that you, the patient, may know a little bit more about what your body needs than the actual physician. I've dismissed several, and I mean several doctors who wanted to provide care for me, and I'm just like, you ain't the one. And I know that from you coming in the door. I know that from your bedside manner with the patient next door to me that you were in. I can hear that conversation because you're so loud. So that's a problem. One is confidentiality. So you're too loud, and the same spiel that you gave the patient next door to me, you came in with the same spiel to me. And I'm very much an individual. So I've dismissed a lot of healthcare professionals who want to provide care to me because of the feeling that you're not open to learning, and you're not open to actually providing me holistic care that Reverend spoke to earlier, about making sure that you're not just taking care of this one thing, you're taking care of the whole body, the whole Kayla. So Devin, I want to come to you, and then we're going to get some more of these comments across our screen. And we're definitely encouraging people to continue to share and definitely keep the watch parties going.
Yeah, so I just wanted to touch a little bit on the last question that you posed in terms of what are some of the most pressing mental health issues that trans men are navigating, transmasculine folks. And I'm sorry. And there's two things that have really been pressing on my mind. One is poverty. Poverty is a mental health issue. I think we touched on that a little bit, but when you don't know how you're gonna keep a roof over your head or how you're gonna get food in your stomach, it's real easy to start spiraling. That's just the reality. And one of the biggest reasons that folks don't go to therapy outside of the social stigma for men, masculine people, is the cost. So we literally cannot afford it. And capitalism has always put money over the well-being of people. And we having to deal with transphobia. If you're not white, then you having to deal with racism, which we already know dramatically impacts Black people's mental health because of the hostilities of this anti-Black world that we're living in. And so you add that into the fact that the majority of Black trans people are living in poverty. And as a man or as a masculine person, you're being told your whole life that, oh, you're supposed to be the breadwinner. That shit really eats away at a person's self-esteem. And so too often feels like a losing game for our folks. And society really doesn't care if trans people are fed or housed. And so I definitely think that that's one of the most pressing mental health issues. And then the other thing that I wanted to touch on, which I did see some comments from our viewers, but was patriarchy. I think patriarchal thinking is a deep mental health issue in our community, for society at large. It's got us all caught up in a game. It's got so many of us out here navigating in our pain and silence because of these unrealistic expectations of manhood that have been presented to us as shoes that literally none of us can adequately fill, because they're unrealistic for all men, cis men, trans men, across the board. Even if you don't necessarily identify as a man, but if you're just a masculine presenting person, if you're perceived as masculine, then people will project all of these expectations of masculinity onto you. Like, you got to be strong, you're supposed to be aggressive, you can't be too sensitive, can't wear this, can't listen to that music, can't be with the gay shit. It just,
You bring your lunch to work.
yeah, it's just incredibly draining and discouraging. And I know so many trans men that have an investment in toxic masculinity. Let's just be honest. And because they think that they've learned that that's what's gonna gain them respect. And so thinking that always roasting somebody, we clowning our boys, or always like saying something funny about a woman, talking about somebody's body, something like that. All that shit, all that patriarchal thinking, we gotta let that shit go. You know, because when we say that we're ready to let that stuff go, what we're saying is that we refuse to be in a space where we're not allowed to show up whole. You know, where I don't get to experience the full range of human emotion, where I don't get to be both caring and be cared for. Like, we need those things. We need spaces that, as masculine people, that are gonna hold and cherish those soft parts of us.
Absolutely.
And so that's one. So yeah.
So that's what this conversation is about. Panel 4, mental health in trans men and trans masculine communities. And we're gonna kick it back to our DJ, our MC. We're gonna let you do a little reading of the comments and keep us in tune to what this conversation is about and what's to come.
I got you, sis. Not a problem. Listen, this conversation has been amazing. Thank you all for joining the conversation today. Y'all see the disclaimer across the bottom. Y'all have heard the conversation. Y'all have heard the lived experiences, and you've commented below so that we can put your comment across the screen and have further dialogue about it. So shout out to you. Shout out to you for hitting that share button, because I see the numbers. Oh, I see the numbers. Y'all is in here today. Listen, we're going to do a little dance break. I'm going to put up some commercials for you, because we need to make sure that y'all is in the building all week. First and foremost, welcome. If you was a little late, welcome to you. We appreciate you joining us. We about to go into the second half. We got more conversation. Miss Kayla is doing a damn thing. I'm going to need y'all to drop some love for the good sis in the comments, because as the moderator, she's keeping it going. Shout out to the panelists. The panelists kept us going. The panelists kept us going. Hey Vargas, I want to comment. I want to see what you said, Vargas. Vargas says that trans men really challenge society's ideas of masculinity, and that is the work. And it should be acknowledged and uplifted. And as an ally, let me tell you, I am lifting you guys up this week as it's Trans Awareness Week. Bonds has put together a week long of celebration, of conversation, of acknowledgement, of resilience, of resiliency. Okay, because they two different things. Look it up. I used to get in trouble. I had to copy the dictionary as a kid, so I know. Okay, listen, Ezra, don't come in here showing off, Ezra. That's why we told them to put you in the back, Ezra. Don't come in here showing off, Jungle. I see you. You guys are in the building. We so appreciate you. Listen, this weekend, real quick, is going down. It's going down this weekend. If you have not heard, I don't know where you've been. If you have not heard, I don't know where you've been, but we need you in the building, baby. We need you in the building this weekend. It's cigars, sips, and cigars. There is a free promotional link that we are going to put in the comments. Tyree, drop that comment down for me for them free tickets that Lee talked about yesterday, because my friends want to come. And now I have a couple dollars, and so they still want to come, and Lee said that they can. So I'm going to put the comment down there for you all. Sunday, pull up on me, baby. I'm coming to the Black Trans Joy Brunch. This Sunday, it is going down in DC, baby. It is going down at the Chateau Remix DC. I don't know about you, baby, but I'm here. I'm here for it, and I need to see you guys in the building. Keep dropping your comments. Keep sharing this live. We want to have as many people in the building as possible. And once again, I was your MC today. T Person, come on, join me, Nosies. Come and follow me, Nosies, and get with me and get into it, because that's how I do it. Hey, Miss Kayla, is you ready?
I'm ready.
Hey, listen, I'm gonna bring back up our moderator. I'm gonna bring back up our wonderful panelists as we go into the second half. We almost done. Come on. It's sexy. Hey, look, we're talking about mental health. We're talking about mental health, and y'all is doing it. Y'all keep sharing them experiences. Keep talking your good shit to these people that need to hear, that need to know that it's people like them advocating, because that's what's in the comments. Y'all keep making a difference. I'm going in the back. They got some hip hop chicken. I'll be back.
That's what's up. Save me some. All right, so let's get into the second part of this conversation. The first part, I want to really appreciate and thank you all for digging deep and sharing your experiences and the experiences of people like yourselves. The next question is, what are the possible solutions to overcome the barriers trans men and transmasculine experience as it relates to accessing mental health? Now, we've talked about, the experience inside. You've made it past all the barriers that we talked about, and you've gotten inside. What about the people who don't make it past those barriers, or what is the path like to getting to those services like mental health care? Because I know a lot of people who are watching, they're probably on the outside still, and they're trying to figure out how to navigate the way to get in. Can you talk about that?
I'll chime in first then. When I think about some of the ways to overcome some of the barriers, some of the themes that we've been chatting about is really just access, right? And some of the social determinants of health. So in particular, poverty or employment, financial support, right? We see that there's all these different funds to support mental health. And a lot of these funds to support mental health are designated to specific demographics. I've seen maybe one fund that's specifically mental health for transmasculine folks or trans men, right? Or this is for transgender folks, but these are our priorities, and typically trans men tend to be on the bottom of that priority. And so some of it is
even there,
or not even there, exactly, right? Not even there, or at the bottom of the priority. And so some of it is, one, create financial access for trans men and trans masculine folks to have access to mental health services. So that's the one thing. The other thing is, if you are a mental health provider and you are culturally humble, you've gone through some cultural humility trainings, you understand what gender affirming care is and how to work with folks with intersecting identities, and you have your own private practice, consider doing sliding scale, or consider even providing free therapy and creating a coalition of therapists and social workers and mental health professionals to be able to provide that therapy to transmasculine folks or the transmasculine community, right? So some of it is being able to do that. If folks don't feel comfortable even going to a mental health provider just yet, then I feel that we should be able to normalize creating support groups for trans men and transmasculine folks or masculine center folks, and then people not give trans men and trans masculine folks or masculine center folks shit for coming together. Because oftentimes when the trans men come together, they're like, well, why is this group of masculine folks getting together? Because we're trying to support each other. So allow that to happen and normalize us coming together and be able to support each other and be vulnerable and be able to create this culture of support. Because sometimes we just need that. We just need that support group before we can even move over to considering going to therapy, right? So create some of these different resources.
Correct. Ezra said, I got trans masculine buddies and we do group therapy type stuff with each other. It ain't in the system or whatever, but it's been a wonder for our growth and a sense of our belonging. And I think that is where it really originates for a lot of trans people, is social support groups. I mean, and a lot of times, I remember when I first started doing groups, I was like, is this really helping people? And then you would start to see the fruition of all of those different groups and how the people started to blossom right before your eyes. And it's also a safe space for people to be vulnerable. I think somebody mentioned that in the comments earlier, is being able to have a space where you can talk about those things that you can talk about with your sister, your brother, your cousin, but you can talk about with your trans buddies. So I think that's super, super important. San Juan, I want to come to you, and then we're going to come to you, Reverend, and then we're going to get into our next question. And Devin, if you want to chime in, you can definitely do that too.
Oh, on this topic, one thing that I always say is, it's a lot of money as far as grants. It's a lot of money out there for different types of things, but they have to know that the need is there. So in my opinion, it's not enough people stating that they need mental help. You know what I'm saying? So if we don't know that mental help is needed, who's going to focus on it? It's one of those things where funding is being given to things. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, how do we make that the standard? How do we make that the standard? How is that the status quo? Is that it's a universal thing? It's you're human. You need this access to this thing. How do we make it to that point? Like we've already developed that. We don't have the data. There's a tool that's going to collect data, but how do we get to the point where this is just standardized care for humans? And whatever comes up within that session or those sessions, and it's identified that, okay, this is something that this particular person can help with that thing. Something that we did here in Memphis was created a guide. And it was called the Transvest of Memphis. It's still called the Transvest of Memphis, but it identified professionals, medical professionals who could provide affirming care for trans individuals. And what I saw over the course of the years is that the traction picked up and a lot of medical professionals came out and was like, wanted to meet with me and say, hey, I want to be in that book because I know it's not coming up in your survey that you're conducting, but this is a service that we're willing to provide to this particular community. So do you think that there's something that we can do collectively that would make this the standard? And this is for anybody. San Juan, you brought it up, but this question is open to anybody.
I'll take a stab at it. I definitely believe that this is something that can be made
Okay.
standard. And one of the ways to do it is we have to own it, first of all. And then we have to take our voices and we have to constantly and consistently make them be heard. The same way that as a people, we make our voices heard when we want to talk about something going on in the sports arena, when we use our voices to make it be heard about something that's going on with our children's school. We need to just constantly, consistently, every day at high volume make them hear our voices. You know, we need to be out there, whether it's the marches, whether it's at the voting tables, and not just at the voting tables for the national. We need to be at our city and our local arenas. We need to be finding out what's going on within our communities as a whole. We need to hear our voices. I definitely believe that talking amongst ourselves is a start. You know, breaking down the barriers within our own communities, ourselves, amongst each other, and tear down the ideas that we're so different from one another, um in a sense of, oh, if you're living it this way versus being this way over here, that we're different, because we're still essentially the same. So we need to come together, because one of the biggest things is that they look at us and they say they don't even have it together.
Mm.
They're looking and they're acting a hot mess. So if they're a hot mess over here, what does it make a difference on whether or not we come together for them? We have to come together ourselves to make sure that our voices is heard. And as far as, can it be something, or is there a way, and not just to put a plug out, because I know we want to put out resources, but I am the founder of an organization called the Auspicious Mental Assertion Program Incorporated, and the program that I'm developing is actually for this. It is actually to get therapists to come together and get sponsors to come together to, number one, things that's going to help annihilate and get away with the feeling that you're unheard, and the adding to the mental health issue is to stop the PTSD by stopping having individuals have to constantly relive what their trauma is. I'm trying to bring down and tear down that barrier so that you can make your call and you get your sponsor, and that sponsor is the person, your person that you have for life. They know you, they build that rapport with you. So when you're having an issue, they talk with you at whatever time of day it is. You know, if you think about AA and NA meetings, and you consider your suicide prevention hotlines, these are going to come together and they're going to join so that you have that individual. When you look at the housing and the fact that a lot of our community members are out on the street, or they're living in these hotels and they don't have jobs, or they have jobs that is bouncing back and forth, you know, trying to implement so that the way COVID has brought together to teach us that, you know, we can now work from home. Developing programs to where that you can have these work from home jobs in these hotels, which is going to help them gain financial literacy. It's going to help them gain that financial independence, which is going to knock down another mental health barrier, because now they will have that job, and then they can build themselves up, build their families up, move out, and someone else will move in and take their place and then continue on. You know, it's going to help build that mentorship that's needed to help them be the productive and authentic self that they need within themselves, within their society, within their home, within their job path, which is again going to take, and it's going to erase and tear down a lot of these barriers that we're facing, you know. But it's all a start of opening up, having those conversations and coming together so that we can let them know, look, we're here. We're not falling away by the wayside, and our voices will be heard. Our demands will be met, and that this is a situation that's going to deteriorate once we allow them to know that this is our platform and we won't give it up.
Absolutely. So I want to, before I get to the other panelists on this, I want to come to a couple of the comments that kind of like talk about what the conversation is now. And we have 3 from Sebastian Smith. One says, most mental health providers are not educated on the lived experiences of trans men, especially the overlapping experiences of Black trans men. And we talked about the identities and how the identities overlap each other, and sometimes they're not as expressive as most identities. Sebastian also says, I have 3 therapists, laugh out loud, a marriage therapist, a career coach, and a personal therapist. Black people, Black people in general, I think is what Sebastian is trying to say, need access to mental health providers. And there's an S on the end of that. Because remember I said, like, you'll go to this standardized place and they'll, intake you, if you will, and then they'll put you with different people who may specialize in these different type of mental health issues. We're gonna go to the comment from Ezra. Ezra is live in the comments, y'all. We sure appreciate it. Community building under a common mission seems a vital starting point, and I wholeheartedly agree. Building community and trust amongst each other, that we can build verbiage to take to the system that rightfully reflects our needs, but that evolving and expanding space of belonging to empower us seems like a solid start. And I completely agree. And I see the head nods and I see the smiles and agreement of that complete statement. And that's exactly where it starts. And the key word is organizing. And Reverend, you spoke to, that's what we need to do. We need to organize. And a lot of times people come to support groups and they don't realize they're a part of organizing something, because there's a leader of that group and there's a sub leader of that group, and those people, and there's somebody taking notes. And those notes can be compiled to make the case that creates the verbiage that we need in order. And this verbiage is not just something that Devin came up with or Zami came up with or San Juan came up with. This is what the collective has come up with in these organizing groups, these social support groups. So I want to come to you, Devin, and then I'm going to come to you, Zami, and then we're going to get into our next question.
Yeah, man, I just really appreciate this panel. So many wonderful, wonderful things that have been said, and I really just I can't agree more in terms of like the need for the support groups, the need for the spaces for ourselves. I think we really need to get more invested in each other's well-being. Like there's a lot of talk about self-care nowadays over the last couple of years, but what a lot of folks really need more than anything is community care. People checking on them to make sure that they got what they need. Folks, being reminded that they have listening ears, around them, because it's real easy to feel alone in your thoughts in a room full of people. I'm sure we all know. And I think, some possible solutions are really leaning more deeply into brotherhood, leaning more deeply into community care, and like creating those spaces like you're talking about where we're meeting consistently, and they're created with this intention of developing and strengthening a network of support for each other, where we can uplift each other no matter what we got going on, and just being invested in each other's well-being. And I will say I do think it's important that it's we're encouraged to be vulnerable with each other, and we can ask for advice and stuff, but those spaces that we're creating more specifically need to be encouraging us to be our best selves, like to each other and to ourselves. We don't need to be in spaces enabling bad behavior, because we got enough of those. Niggas, there's plenty of Facebook groups for that. But I really want to see more spaces where we're intentional about the boys coming together, and we're not enabling those isms, just general behavior that can really discourage other guys from being vulnerable about what's really going on with them, about who they are, and what their support needs are. Because that's what's going to really make a space that's safe for everybody, and that's going to allow all of us to be able to share about what's really going on with us without fear of being judged. So yeah, community care.
Awesome. So we've kind of really talked about the question that I was going to pose to you, Zami. So we're going to get into the next question. That question was possible solutions to overcoming the barriers, and I think we've hit the nail on the head several times. So let's get into advice, because I know a lot of people, you're experts, and people come to experts for advice. So this is the nit grit of the conversation. What advice do you have for trans men and transmasculine folks navigating the accessing mental health care, as that may be triggering for a lot of people?
Yeah, this is a great question. Because honestly, a lot of the advice I have is just general for anyone, regardless of your identity, right? And some of it has to do with some research. So one, if you know folks in your circle who have a mental health provider, ask some questions like, how did you find your mental health provider? Is there a website I could go to? Is there a list that you have? Do you have recommendations, right? So using your network first to get that recommendation or those resources. The other piece is to also do research online. So there's different resources out there now. So for example, the National Queer and Trans, National Incutin, National Queer Trans Therapists of Color Network, for example, that's ran by Erica Woodland. That's a great resource for transmasculine folks, for any LGBTQ person. Most of those folks are trans or queer folks of color who are providing mental health services. And it has a list of people in your area. There's also just going to places like Beam, so beam.org. Beam does a lot of work around mental health as well. And so doing some research there, and then also getting a buddy. So if you know that you're going to go and see a provider for the first time, have a buddy who'll go with you and say, hey, will you just sit in the lobby while I go and I do this assessment? Right. Have a list of questions that you want to ask a provider to make sure that they're gender affirming, make sure that they are culturally competent around racial, culture, and different cultural backgrounds. And then, also understand that even though they're the ones with the degree, you're the one with the power. And so when you go in and you see that mental health professional, you are interviewing them. They are not interviewing you. You're interviewing them to see if they are a good fit to serve you. And so understanding that you make that decision is key, and moving from that spirit that I'm going in to see who is going to be the next person I hire. You are hiring them. And so instead of saying they're doing a service for me, no, you're hiring them to get a need met.
Absolutely. And we got a comment, a couple comments. Jay says, well spoken, Jay Clark. Tracy Jada O'Brien says, phenomenal. Sebastian says, yes, Devin. Capone says 100, 100, 100. So true. And then we have another comment from Sebastian. This is great advice. We have to share among our networks the positive experiences we have had with mental health providers. This is the most important part. Don't gatekeep that needed resource. And that's what happens a lot of times, is that people have to, go from person to person to person to person to figure out where I get this little bitty resource. And I've had people to come to me and I explain it to them in a couple of minutes. And they're like, I've asked 15 people and they can't tell me this. And I'm like, and they name off the 15 people. And I'm like, these people I for sure know about this resource, and that's a thing that happens. Like, I don't want to share this resource because what happens when it's not there for me? So that takes us to the scarcity of resources among trans organizing as well. And that's a major deficit when it comes to funding for groups like Black and Brown and Black and Brown trans organizations and organizing. And you mentioned Beam. Beam is a great organization that helps to bolster mental health awareness within organizations, within rural areas, within the South. My sister's house, the Tiny House Project, has been a recipient of their support. They've made it possible for us to have our own therapist who has been working with trans women for at least 10 years. And she's working with our people with free counseling, and that's through the support of organizations like Beam. So you have to figure out where the support is, and we can't gatekeep it. We can't gatekeep the providers. We can't gatekeep the support of the resources, the funding, whatever that is. We have to be able to disseminate that throughout our community, and not once you've used it up, then you want to share it. Share it because you never know when someone's going to need that. So yeah, let's get some more advice around accessing healthcare and the possible triggers that are associated with that.
Sure. Definitely believe that, as like you said, you can't gatekeep the information. I definitely believe in sharing and giving all the information out as possible, especially doing it from a very educational standpoint. I get calls all the time, people directed to me asking me, because I know for myself, when I started my medical transitioning, and I Googled and I researched as much as I could. I did not see representation of me, so I had to dive deep to find all the information I could find and sift through, so I've made it a point to now where anyone can come ask me and I will help direct them. If I can't find the information, I will send you to someone that I know that can find the information. But it's all about checking the information, finding it, sifting through it, researching it, because you want to make sure not only are you getting good information, but you want to make sure that the resource you're getting is a good fit for you. So yes, definitely doing things like writing down your questions before you go, seeking a buddy, as stated earlier, to go with you so you're not going alone, so you don't have to feel the pressures of the triggers that may possibly come, because we all know, or most of us know, that the anxiety buildup before the appointments, just knowing that you have to go, in and of itself is a lot and is a huge trigger. So we have to be able to set a pace that allows for this to be slowed down. Set a pace to where finding this research information and finding these healthcare professionals, as stated earlier, you're hiring them. They're not hiring you. They are seeking your employment to work for you. So it's nothing to take these professionals and fire them if they're not a good fit for you. If their demographics, if they're what they're used to servicing is not what you need, go somewhere else. And it's okay. You don't have to be made to feel guilty. And that's another thing. A lot of times we're made to feel guilty for not keeping the service or not staying with the service of the providers we're at. When in fact, that if they're not a good fit for you, then no, we don't need to stay, because that is going to be a severe detriment to our care.
You're absolutely correct. Like, a lot of people don't realize that, and me personally, I've been in the situation where I go back and forth with myself, like, I know she means well, or I know he means well, but I need this and I'm not getting access to. And I go back and forth and I go back and forth, and I feel bad in some situations. In some situations, I'm like, I don't have no feelings at all that I told him to get out of this office. Because like, some providers will treat you, even if you deny that service or deny them the employment to be someone who's supposed to be helping you with something. You're gonna feel like you're turning something down that you really need, but you really, really, truly don't. And a lot of people don't know that they can do that. They feel like, well, I'm a veteran, so I have to go to the veterans hospital. I can't just pick a hospital. Well, there's other providers within that association that could possibly help you. And then a lot of people get the response from providers that there's another patient right outside, like there's a waiting list, and that's okay. You can continue to have a waiting list, but these people will continue to be broken, and I'm going to go somewhere where they're going to make sure that I'm whole. So San Juan, I want to come to you because I see you jumping up at the screen, so come on in.
No, I was just gonna say that when you said talked about veterans feeling like they're trapped and that they have to go to the VA, that's a negative. You don't have to. You can seek healthcare on the outside if that's more to your comfortability. One advice that I would give to my trans brothers is to try to get a strong system. Transitioning is not weak. And I say this because, like you said, it's so many advocates that we could go to for information that you're lacking if you don't know. Like for Prime, he's a good mentor. He was he helped me. When you know people and you know the positions that they play, to latch on to those people. And I will say this: not everyone is helping. Not everyone is humbling like Sebastian, you know what I'm saying, or others. So it's good to surround yourself with positive people who have experienced, who have went through certain. You can call on these people to help you get through, when it's dealing with something. You may not feel like you're strong enough to fight certain battles when it comes to proper health care, mental health care. So one thing I say is create a great support system for yourself that's going to work for you during your trans. That's the one thing I'll questions. Don't pretend that you know everything. That's one thing, because our pride sometimes get in our way and we think that we know everything. But ask questions.
Absolutely. Ask questions.
That's very important. Ask questions. Head and else.
Yeah, I would definitely say ask questions. And something that I always would do is do research, and don't just come in and say things to your provider, but maybe print things off like from WebMD or whatever trusted medical website that you get your information, and present it to your doctor and say, hey, here's an article, read this article, because this is what it's talking about me. And this is something that I didn't know, and maybe you don't know this either. Devin, I want you to come in, and we're gonna take this comment from Mark, and where Mark says, share the wealth, please. So Devin, share the wealth on tips that you have for trans men and transmasculine folks navigating mental health and wellness located in areas lacking adequate providers. And I'm asking you this question, and then we're going to open it up to everybody, because I think you've had an experience living in the South as well as living outside of the South. And I know that in the South it's a whole different ballgame. Not to say that it's any different from the Midwest, or it's worse than the Midwest, or it's worse than the West or the East Coast. But for my understanding, accessing healthcare here in the South is way different. I know people personally who have had to travel 200 miles to get, access to a mental health provider who would diagnose them with gender dysphoria so that they can get access to hormone replacement therapy. And they would still have to drive another 130 miles to get that. So I just want to put things in perspective and talk about the areas.
No, thank you for that perspective. You're definitely right. It is a whole different ball game trying to access services in the South. In terms of advice that I would give to folks who are having a hard time accessing those services, or just like not able to access those services at the time. I know this is gonna sound real cliche, but I'm a strong believer in the power of yoga and meditation, and having that a consistent practice is like guaranteed to positively impact your mental health and physical health, of course, which affects our mental health. Just in terms of like, an everyday thing, it's not going to make all your problems go away by any means. It's still not going to help you, access that, but it will help you to have a stronger body and mind connection. And it can be really helpful tools in terms of managing your anxiety while you are dealing with all of this, trying to find the support that you need. And, piggybacking on a lot of things that were already said, but just like definitely recommend joining groups like on Facebook with other guys. There's a lot of different support groups out there where you can get information and ask about different surgeons, different experiences that folks have had on testosterone, whatever your questions may be. Following different guys online, can really help you to feel less alone and find out different resources that you wouldn't necessarily be able to find through a Google search. So those are two things.
Awesome. Want to come to you, Zami? You got any? And also feel free to plug any resources that you all may have, because we talked about this before during this conversation. Is that being in those support groups and sharing of the resources has been really, really helpful for many different people. And we're gonna take this as an incubator for many different support groups. Like hopefully a lot of people have received. One of the easiest takeaways is to start a network. So feel free to share resources within these networks that we're connecting on this conversation.
Yeah, the only thing, I really love what Devin shared about having a spiritual practice and just having a consistent wellness practice. I think that's really important for your wellness in general, particularly your mental health. The other, and particularly the spiritual piece as well. And I'm not saying necessarily Abrahamic religion. If you're down with Abrahamic religion, awesome. Do go that route as well. I practice hoodoo and I'm an Ifa practitioner. And so being connected to African traditional religion has really helped heal my mental and spiritual body. And I also am in therapy. And, one of the things I would say is one of the gifts we had from this pandemic, COVID, is that a lot of businesses and services moved online. And so if you're living in a rural area, a frontier area, or area that just doesn't have a lot of gender affirming care, you can go to, again, those, Beam, NQ10, or National Queer Trans Therapists, a color network. I found a therapist off of Therapy for Black Girls. Before, you could go to any of these sites and see, is there anyone practicing in my state? And if there's someone's practicing in your state, see if they offer online services. And then that's a way that you could get access to a affirming mental health provider within your state without having to travel. So and typically online services are a little bit cheaper. So that's one resource or tip for folks who are living in rural areas.
Thank you. And that kind of touched on the topic that not a topic, but a comment that's in the comments from Too Much Tea and a Little Estrogen. It says, ask questions working with people from 18 to 70. Some people don't know how to work the internet or can't get their questions online. So when you find a provider, it's good to ask all the questions you need to know. Take a pencil and a pad to, jot down questions or put it in your phone. But that's a real thing. So can we talk about tips? And we're gonna I know we're getting close to wrapping things up, but I do want to talk about how do we access these things if we're not internet friendly, or if we're in a rural area and we don't have access to online platforms. How do we get there? How do we reach those people? Are there any resources that you know of, maybe just in your locality, that you can refer people to who are having issues with online support?
So I will say, if you're somewhere where you're having issues with online support, you could always go to start out with like in your Planned Parenthood places. You could always go to a library, because even if in yourself, if you don't have internet at home, or your phone or anything like that, if you can go to the library, you'll be able to access these things and be able to pull up the information that you need there. If you go to the Planned Parenthood, they can guide you in the directions you need to go. And even if you call, like you look at like places like Blue Cross Blue Shield, is really good with the insurance and finding certain things, you can contact the nurses, and the nurses will find and actually get a list that will tell you, for the state that you're in, the different resources that's available to you that you can get help with. And that is everything from scholarships that they offer for surgical procedures or different things of that nature. There are things like binding and GC2E and things like that. They offer scholarships and they offer programs where they donate binders and things of this nature. And these are all different platforms that you can get if that'll help. Also, when you look, you want to make sure you look up for your mental health providers that provide for our community, even as much as ones that look like us, that understand what we go through just as a culture, and they can help direct you to other resources as well.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for that. That's going to almost wrap us up, but I want everyone to take a few moments, few seconds, because I know we're dead over time. And I know everybody has a lot they want to get into, and then we got to talk about these sips and cigars. I don't know what I'm sipping, but I do have a cigar. I want everyone to share one thing they would like this audience to take away from this session. And that can be anything. It can be related to the topic. It could not be related to the topic, but hopefully it's related to the topic. And we're going to start with you, Devin. Then we're going to come to you, San Juan, Reverend, and then Zami, you can end us out. And then we'll turn it back over to our MC for the night.
My bad. So tell me, ask the question one more time.
Oh no, just share one thing that you want the audience to take away from this session today.
I would say, you are not alone. That's the one thing I want you to take away. There's so many of us out here. There's dudes all over the world. And you do have a community of people here that want to support you. If you just reach out for us.
Absolutely. And that's very evident that there's an abundance of support. San Juan.
One thing that I would want the audience to take from this session is to never allow healthcare professionals to make you feel like something is wrong with you because of their lack of knowledge or experience.
Absolutely. They'll try it. They will definitely try it. Rev, you got something for us?
Yes, I would like to say and tell everybody to make sure you are not afraid to stay authentic to yourself in order to live the life that you need to live, and allow anyone to take your mental health awareness away from you. If long as you stay authentic to yourself and you make everyone understand where you're at and where you are, you will keep the empowerment within you.
And last but not least.
Yeah. I just want to say that we are worthy and deserving of being well. And so to the audience, and specifically, I'm going to speak directly to my transmasculine and transgender men siblings in the audience. Remember, you're worthy and deserving of being well. You're worthy and deserving of a community, and you're worthy and deserving of love and thriving. And don't ever forget that, especially on those hard days.
Especially on the hard days. Lasting words. So we're going to turn it back over to our MC. I really appreciate the opportunity to moderate this conversation. Thank you, Tyree. Thank you, brothers. Thank you.
Nah, I'm gonna say thank you. I mean, that was a great conversation, y'all. So what y'all don't know is I literally called Kayla last night because we had Miss I called her last night and was like, hey, can you come do this film? She's like, I got you.
Running through the airport like, I guess I can do it, yeah.
So I definitely appreciate that. I definitely appreciate this conversation. Thank you so much, Kayla, for being our moderator. Panelists, thank y'all so much. Excellent. Thank y'all for being vulnerable, telling y'all stories. I thank y'all for being here, taking the time. I know we did go over a little overtime, but we are definitely got through it, and I appreciate y'all. So what we're gonna do is now we're gonna wrap up. I just want to say thank y'all again for coming. The mental health on transmasculine and trans men community. Once again, we want to thank our sponsors, Destination Tomorrow, If a Foundation for Radical Possibilities, the Transgender Justice Funding Project, Gilead Sciences, Us Helping Us, National Trans Visibility March, Unspoken Treasures Society, Flux AHF, and the Human Rights Campaign. We could not have done this without you all. Thank you again to our sponsors. Once again, Sips and Cigars is Saturday night, Transmasculine Trans Men only. It is free. The link will be here. Also, Sunday is Black Trans Joy Brunch in Washington, D.C. Again, thanks to our phenomenal sponsors. Everything for this weekend is freaking free, y'all. All you gotta do is register. It's free. So you can't go wrong with that. Thank y'all so much. T, close us out because we did that.
Hey, look, they did that. They did that. Listen, Devin said you are not alone. And then San Juan said, don't allow healthcare to make you feel like something wrong with you. You all right, ain't shit wrong with you, and don't allow them healthcare workers to make you believe that. The good Rab says, don't be afraid to live unapologetically. That touched my spirit because listen, That's my tag mark for my TPX brand. Live unapologetically. The good Rev says be authentic in who you are and know that you are okay. You understand what I'm saying? Zammy says, listen, all that, and you are worthy and deserving of everything that you have. The panel yesterday says, if you can't find it, go create it. If it's not in your network or your neighborhood, hit the internet. Connect with your brothers that's already got it popping. Break those silos down. The silos got to go so that the education, the awareness, the affirmation, and resilience can continue. Listen, I'm your host today, T. Pearson. Hey, Nosy, stand up where you at. Come join me. Come follow me. And listen, today felt good. It felt good. We see y'all tomorrow. Make sure you register because we in the building again tomorrow to close it out. It feels good, don't it? It feels, mind your business. We up out of here. See y'all tomorrow, baby.